Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is House Bill 374 by Representative Larverdane, relative to minimum wage, to establish a state minimum wage, to provide for an annual increase of the minimum wage, to provide for civil remedies, to provide for damages, to provide for venue, to provide for the limitation of actions, to require reporting of certain.
Just a minute. Could we have some decorum, please? Let's give them an opportunity to clear up. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. To require reporting of certain information by the city, parish, and district clerks of court, to provide for exceptions, to provide for enforcement, to provide for effectiveness, and to provide for related matters.
All right, Representative Larverdane, on your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, it's a pleasure to be here. As a member of this committee, I'm going to bring another bill that's rough, but it's needs to be done, and we need to proceed with it. Good morning. This is HB374. I filed this bill because as a state, we must address this issue. Our citizens are hurting and they're struggling to survive. According to the census of 2022, we have 4.7 million people in Louisiana. We lost about 68,000 residents. Louisiana is losing residents mostly through domestic migration. Other southern states are growing, not Louisiana. This bill proposes to establish a state minimum wage. The federal minimum wage was enacted in 1938. The last federal wage increase was in July of 2009. The federal wage right now is $7.25, and that's what Louisiana accepts as law. I must state this. 30 out of 50 states and the District of Columbia have state minimum wages greater than the federal minimum wage of $7.25. Arkansas, our neighbor, has a minimum wage of $11 per hour. Missouri, close to us, has a minimum wage of $12 per hour. Florida has a minimum wage of $11 per hour. These three states, Arkansas, Missouri, and Florida, unemployment rates are declining, total employment numbers are increasing. If we want to move our state forward and get people back to work, we have to deal with minimum wage. Louisiana has about 500,000 residents working age 16 to 64, living below the poverty level, the second highest in the nation. That is unacceptable. Louisiana has lost population due to the various storms and the difficulty of rebuilding, but we've lost population due to other states providing better wages, better salaries, and better opportunities. Louisiana, we must do better. We are losing precious talent due to our poor wages and lack of opportunities. We educate our young people, but they leave for better and higher paying jobs at other locations. This bill is the first step. This proposes a state minimum wage of $10 per hour beginning January 1st, 2024. It also proposes a state minimum wage of $12 per hour beginning January 1st, 2026 in increments. Thirdly, it proposes a state minimum wage of $14 per hour beginning January 1st, 2028. This law has some exceptions. This law does not apply to student employees of state colleges and universities, and private employees, and to tipped employees or agriculture employees as defined by federal law. This is the time that we must act. We must do something. If not now, when? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
And so your witness is here. Please identify yourself.
Either one.
Hi, my name is, can you hear me?
Yeah, Council.
Mic check, there you go. My name is Darrell Hurst. I represent the East Baton Rouge Parish Metropolitan Council from District 5, where I serve approximately 40,000 people in the Metro Council. I'm here today to support this effort. I actually attempted to do this year on the local level, and working with state legislators, working with people of similar interests, because when we look at our DPW, Department of Public Works, we have 240 people in terms of gaps. Our city police officers, we have 120 gaps. Our sheriff's department, we have 100 gaps. Our firemen and first responders, there's huge gaps. And one of the main reasons why is because they get trained, because we have some of the best and brightest talent here in the state of Louisiana, especially in the parish of East Baton Rouge. But they get trained here, they work the minimum of 2 years, and they leave. and go elsewhere. No different than our teachers, no different than the workforce that comes out of our great institutions of higher education. We have so many talented folks that come from Southern LSU, ULL, and Southeastern, as well as the technical and community colleges, but we still have gaps in our employment because they don't want to stay. And having a livable wage, I said livable, not minimum, is extremely important. And recent studies have shown through the United Way that $16.20 is a livable wage. So having $7.25, and that's in East Baton Rouge Parish, and that's a single household with no spouse or child. So an individual is $16.20. So should we jump to $16.20? No, I don't agree with that. But we have to start raising that minimum wage in a granular, incremental level to hopefully get to a place where our people have a place they can live, work, and play. And then the final thing that I will, I'll say two final things. One is when we talk about recidivism, or we talk about crime reduction, the capital city has a huge increase in crime. We're down 23%, but we're still up 18% pre-COVID. So my point in saying that is people typically go to crime because they have the inability to put the necessities in the household that are required to make the household float. So if the money's not there, what I'm going to do, I'm either going to get a second job, a third job, a fourth job, which ends up messing up my household, or I'm going back to doing the things that I did before where I got large chunks of money for limited effort. And so to fight crime in our city, which new crime as well as recidivism, in addition to not losing our talent to other communities and closing some of the gaps in our workforce, not only in the government space, but also in the private space, I am asking that you pass this bill as an initial step to provide those incremental increases that we need to help close the gaps. Not just in East Baton Rouge Parish where the livable wage is $16.20, but also in other parishes where it may be a little less. And I thank you for your time today.
I'm Tyrone Walker. I'm Vice President for the Urban League of Louisiana. For 85 years, we've been fighting to help African Americans and other underserved communities in their pursuit of economic self-reliance, parity, power, and civil rights. Thank you, Chairman Carpenter, for this opportunity to address this body, and thank you, Representative Larvendane, for championing this very important piece of legislation. While I can spend a long time making a moral case for this bill, I'll begin my very brief remarks with a simple but indisputable truth. Increasing the state's minimum wage is good business. It's good for all Louisianians, particularly African Americans, Hispanics, and Latinos looking to build generational wealth. It's good for Louisiana's economy and GDP, and it's good for Louisiana's future as it will make our state more competitive in attracting a motivated and skilled workforce, which is the very thing that every single economic development agency in our state says is important to attracting new businesses and industries. The second point I'll make is that if this body doesn't choose to increase the state's minimum wage, we will miss the opportunity to join other states who are leading the charge to provide working families with a living wage, which allows them to afford quality housing, access to healthier food options, and basic necessities. Now, while I know our partners at Louisiana Budget Project and others will likely highlight the benefits to thousands of Louisiana workers in their testimonies later today, I think it's important to highlight and appropriate to highlight some tangible examples of companies who have already made this important shift. 14 financial institutions, including Bank of America and Truist, pay a minimum wage of $22 an hour, as well as companies doing business right here in Louisiana, such as JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and MetLife, who pay their employees a minimum between $16.50 and $20 an hour, respectively. 19 retail companies, which we're all familiar with, Costco, Sam's, Walgreens, all pay a minimum wage of approximately $15 more and conduct business in this state. Food companies that we're all familiar with, Starbucks, right, pay larger minimum wage than this body has allowed. And our beloved Louisiana-born Raising Cane's just last week announced that they will raise their minimum wage and pay their workers $19.50. But raising the minimum wage also strengthens small businesses by reducing turnover in a time where businesses are struggling to find workers. In 2022, Louisiana ranked 26th in state GDP. By way of comparison, Florida, which Representative Larverdane, one of the states he referenced a few moments ago, it has a minimum wage rate of $11 per hour, higher than Louisiana's minimum wage, and they rank 4th. So, as I previously said, representatives, increasing the state's minimum wage is good for business for Louisiana.
You're right on, you're right on the money. All right, thank you. So, here, questions, just a second. Starting with, let me see who came in order. Representative Freeman was first. Representative Freeman,
Thank you, Mr.
and
Chair.
then let me
Oh,
just
I'm sorry.
give the order of these, so, with this new equipment. So after Representative Freeman will be Representative Cruz, then Representative Amity, and then Representative Cormier, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Larverdane, I can surely agree with you on one of the points that you made, that our best and brightest are leaving the state and going to other states. And I could tell you, I know just from my community and my family, that a lot of that I know are going to Texas because the jobs there are available and they're much better atmosphere in Texas than it is in Louisiana. And my daughter currently works in Mississippi. She doesn't work in Louisiana. But do you know what the minimum wage is in Texas?
I don't know.
$7.25 an hour. Do you know what the minimum wage is in Mississippi? $7.25 an hour. So when you try to equate people leaving because of the minimum wage, that's not jiving. People are going to Texas and the minimum wage is $7.25. My daughter's working in Mississippi and it's $7.25. So $7.25 is not running people out of the state. It's the availability of jobs, good paying jobs. That's why they're leaving the state, not because of the minimum wage. I'm glad this gentleman brought up Raising Cane's, because I just saw that article. Raising Cane's is a fast food restaurant with zero skills is paying $19.50 an hour. And you mentioned a lot of other companies are paying well above the minimum wage because that's what the market is bearing. I'm not aware in my community, maybe you are, and I'd like to hear what businesses you know in your community that's paying $7.25 an hour. But in my community, in Covington and Mandeville, I know of no businesses that are paying $7.25 an hour. Do you know of any specific businesses that you know of?
Yeah. City of Baton Rouge. City of Baton Rouge.
You're on.
Well, right there.
All right, so the city of Baton Rouge starts off at $8 an hour, $7.25 for some, because that was the pace that was set by the federal government. And so when we advertise jobs, we have to advertise them, unless it's a special rate that we're putting out there for a specific period, we have to advertise what those jobs minimum salaries are. Our minimum hourly wage is based on minimum wage, which is why we cannot attract people to work for DPW, which is why we have 240 gaps within our department.
Now, so you're saying that the city of Baton Rouge must, by law, pay minimum wage?
The law was set based on minimum wage, and when you increase it here, it increases it for the city of Baton Rouge as well.
No, that's not my question. My question is, does the law require Baton Rouge, the city of Baton Rouge, to pay minimum wage?
No, it does not.
Then why don't the city of Baton Rouge pay more than minimum wage?
I'm working on that as well.
Now, you did, and I'm glad you brought that up, because you did mention something that you tried to pass a bill to raise the minimum wage in Baton Rouge, correct?
I did, but it can only be done at the state level, which is why I'm here to support Representative Larverdane's bill today.
So you can't bring a bill that says for these types of workers, we're going to pay $8, $9, and $10. So I just want to be sure.
Now, that would only be for the city workers, and the answer is yes, and I am bringing that.
Okay.
We're going through a pay study now to do that because I support not only minimum wage increases, but city parish employees increases as well. I believe that those go in tandem.
Now, you mentioned something. You said that I think your police department's down so many numbers of people, and the other departments you claim were all down hundreds of people, correct?
Correct.
So do those departments pay minimum wage?
Some of them do. Depends. Not just because the department, it depends on the position. So a civil service is a lot different, right? Y'all are here at the state. So at some of those scales, the answer is yes on that.
So you
do I
say-
have the specific departments and positions with me? No. But there's clerical, there's custodial, there's direct officers, there's a whole bunch of different departments, DPW, Public Works. So I'm not HR. I don't have that in front of me. But the answer is there are gaps, and in each department there is a minimum wage job. Yes.
And again, there's nothing that I know of, no law, unless there is a local ordinance that you guys have that requires the government of Baton Rouge to pay a person minimum wage. Because I think you just admitted that that's not the case.
I'll tell you, we're working on both. I believe that working in tandem and does that. And the other reason that I'm here as well is because when a business opens, in terms of crime prevention, I can go on and on and on. But when you look at median incomes, median household incomes, how do we invite people into certain communities? Small businesses that start off at $7.25 an hour because they're opening, when they do hire those employees don't make a livable wage. The bottom line is they don't make a livable wage. It doesn't help the median incomes in our communities to attract other businesses and have economic growth, which is what the Urban League talked about earlier. And so because that standard is there, that is a standard that allows small businesses to come in as they come into our economy and put businesses in place that don't provide a livable wage, which creates the cycles that we're trying to prevent from happening today.
And one thing you did mention too, and I want to get a clarification on that. In your comments, you said we have teachers that are leaving the state. You mentioned teachers. I'm not aware of any teacher in any public school or private school that gets paid minimum wage. Are you?
I am, because and one thing we look at the city of Baton Rouge. I'm going to go back to that.
No, I want you to tell me where teachers
Head
that you know
Start
of.
person makes $17,000 a year.
A teacher?
A Head Start teacher makes $17,000 a year for the city of Baton Rouge. I'm almost embarrassed to say that right now, right? Which is why I'm doing the pay study. I'm here representing the city of Baton Rouge and District 5 specifically, but to support this bill because the answer to you is yes.
Let me just do a quick math on that. Well, 17,000 is actually above minimum wage, so that they're not even getting paid minimum wage. Thank you for answering my questions.
All right. Thank you. The next one is Representative Cruz.
Thank you. My questions are more philosophical. There's a book out there. It's called Please Stop Helping Us. And it talks about some of these programs and why they don't work. And this is philosophical about minimum wage and who minimum wage was first designed for. What's the idea behind minimum wage?
Well, can I clear one thing up?
Sure.
The teacher, the $17,000 is $8.17 per hour. So no, it's not $7.25, but it is $8.17. This raises up to a minimum of 10. Thank you.
Let me say something on it. Who's going to work for 817 and they're struggling? If you look at rent, housing, cable, food, you can't survive off that. Is my mic on?
Yes, on.
Yeah.
You're
They
on. You
can't.
gotta
They
speak
can't survive.
Closer to it.
We want to help people. There are millions of people. There are a lot of people behind us. We just want something that we can at least a start. If you want to keep talent, you've got to pay them at least decent wages. You train them, they leave, they have to go to opportunities. Your daughter, son was blessed to go somewhere else, but understand, we keep losing population. People stay at employment because of how they're treated and the wages. If you treat people like crap, they're not going to be there. When employers are training people, they're spending money, time, and resources. We want to keep them there.
And if I can say one thing, when we go back to the Head Start is foundation for education. Education is a foundation for hope. Hope is a foundation for employment and seizing opportunities. And when you have somebody who's making $17,000 educating your kids, the question is, do you want your child to be in that classroom? Thank you.
Can I just answer Representative Cruz's points? I think you made I think you make a valid point, and I think you're getting to an issue that is, you're right, philosophical, and it's fundamental to many of the issues and discussion that we have around workforce, around economic development and growth for our state. When we ask ourselves, who are we creating programs to, right? We're going down a path about whether or not we need to create opportunities for folks or put them in position, as we're arguing this bill would do, put them in position to create for themselves, right? I've sat in a number of hearings over the last couple of weeks in this body that have argued against creating new subsidies and new programs that would invest more to help people build up, as opposed to what this legislation is attempting to do, which is positioning our workers to be able to earn living wages so that they are relying less on government and other subsidies.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. And I think everybody should make more than that. I don't think you should mandate it, and here's why. Because let's say you have $100 and you can hire some people for $10, you can hire 10 people for $10 an hour, right? What if you say, you know what, $10 isn't enough, I want to pay them 20? You can only hire 5 people now. So yes, increasing the minimum wage benefits some a little, but it hurts some a lot. They lose their jobs altogether. I went to Circle K the other day and checked out with a machine. Walmart, their checkouts everywhere there. There's an Amazon fulfillment center up in Bossier City or Shreveport now. They're going to robots. The thing is, the cost of the employee or paying employees is getting so sky high, they're getting other methods to hire them. But the minimum wage is intended for those people on their first job. You know, they're young. They're just. I'm not saying that's who's employed in it. That's who it's intended for. Someone coming in out of prison, no one wants to pay them $20 right off the bat because they got to make sure, is this person ready to return? After they've shown and proven their worth, if they're wanted to be retained, they will pay them more because they don't want to leave them then. And that's the whole idea behind this is minimum wage is intended as a beginning. Matter of fact, I mean, if there was no minimum wage, I would bet you more people would have jobs. I know it sounds ridiculous and it wouldn't be a lot of money, but some people would have jobs that don't have them right now.
Yeah. So Representative Cruz, I think you're making the best argument that anybody can make for why this legislation needs to go forward. If let's accept your premise that minimum wage was designed for people starting out in their careers. The reality that we know in your neighborhood and neighborhoods all across this state is that the individuals, by and large, that are making minimum wage are not in their first jobs. That's our challenge.
Sure.
If I may, sir, if that was the case, if the majority of folks who were making minimum wage in the state of Louisiana were in their first jobs, I don't think any of us would be sitting here today. The problem is that the vast majority of individuals in our state who have been working years and years and years in the same jobs or in careers, gaining years of experience, gaining qualifications and skills, they are still at a necessary cap. And I just will say, Representative Cruz, your point also dovetails with Representative Freeman's point that he made earlier. He said, and he also made an incredible argument in favor of this legislation. You said, Representative Freeman, a great thing, which is that your daughter and other friends left the state, these were your words, because they went to Texas and other places for higher paying jobs. And then you said another point that I thought is also very valuable. You said, you weren't aware of a company in your community that was paying people $7.50. So I just would then opine that if there is not a large number of companies that feel the cap of $7.50, what would be our hesitancy for increasing the minimum wage?
What would be the need?
The need is that we, again, to the point I just made to you a few moments ago, Representative Cruz, is that unlike your premise, which is that minimum wage was designed, as you said, for people starting their careers, the truth is today that too many of Louisianians are in jobs making minimum wage when they have been in their careers a very long period of time. And I'll just make this one last point.
Mention some of these careers. I mean, if you're still at McDonald's doing the same job you did 10 years ago, that you're not advancing yourself.
Well, I'll say this. Let's go to a career field that is probably folks won't say is very advanced, but let's say our retail clerks in our grocery stores, right? We would say that that's probably not a career that's of advanced skill, but the pandemic taught us that those essential workers were literally the lifeline that so many of our families needed in that pandemic. And I can't help but to reflect upon a previous speaker's point that was made in this room today, which is that this economy and our workforce is built on the backs of business owners that are taking risks. Right? Yes, business owners take risks in our state and in our economy. But the vast majority of risk, like we saw in the pandemic, is bared by the workers. There is no company worth their salt in this state or in this country that can be successful alone just by the sheer skill and the risk of its owners. I think you would agree with me that workers are critical.
In the pandemic, I've heard there were over 900 restaurants in New Orleans that closed permanently.
There were absolutely restaurants that closed permanently.
I'd say that's a pretty big risk to lose your business.
Absolutely, but more restaurants would have closed if there were not the workers that were willing to risk stay on the front lines and risk their lives.
Where's the money coming from an increase in wages? Let's say someone is paying below minimum wage. Where does that raise come from?
Well, we know that ultimately the burden for all wages are bared by the consumer.
By the consumer, right?
Yes.
So what does that do for Louisianans that aren't making much already? It just makes it more expensive for to live, right?
Well, if more people have more money to spend, Representative, if they make more money, they'll have more money to spend.
Okay. Well, I would say, I'll just posit to you that some of the best economists in the world, Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, you name them, argue against the minimum wage. They just don't think it's the way free society works, and they think it's actually to our detriment. That Jason Riley that I mentioned, I'd encourage you to read his book, Please Stop Helping Us. It talks about these things and goes into detail that although we think we're helping, I mean, I believe you think you're helping with this. I think it's counterproductive, and we don't see the other side of it. I think everybody in here wants people to make more money at their job. It's just, is it really counterproductive? Is it helping the people we want to help?
The only thing I'd say respectfully, Representative, is if the leading corporations in this country feel that investing in its workers by paying them more is smart business, I think we all should agree that it's smart business to pass this legislation.
So a smaller business to get smarter would do the same thing.
And that it will not hurt jobs and will not hurt our economy. In fact, it will do the opposite.
Well, hurting jobs, I had to argue with just because the Amazon example. They're doing more and more robots and fewer people. I mean, that argues against that. Yeah, they pay more, but they're going to have fewer employees.
In fairness, you know that there is many things that influence the shifts in workers and shifts in how companies deliver their services and goods.
Of course, it's a complex phenomenon, but I'm just saying workers are going to be the ones that suffer in numbers in those circumstances.
In a state where we are constantly hearing every single business leader in this state, every single one, when they talk about what is needed, one of the dissatisfiers that is a barrier for us to gain new businesses and industries, they always highlight the fact that we don't have enough trained, skilled workers that can be retained in our businesses and can stick with those businesses. This legislation would help us remedy that.
I'm glad you said trained and skilled. I think the Louisiana College and Technical School system is probably one of the highlights of the state, and I'd encourage anybody that's in one of those jobs that's not making what they want to make, take advantage of those opportunities, go out there and increase your skills so you can get the higher paying ones.
I think, Representative Cruz, I think I would just refer you to the statement I made earlier to your first point. If a lack of skills was the issue, we would not have a number of folks who have been in the same jobs or in the same careers, gaining skills, gaining capacity, that was still making less than the livable wages.
Thank you.
All right. Representative Cormier. Representative Amity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I'm enjoying the conversation, so I have something for each of you. All right, so right where we left off was trained skilled workers. And gentleman from the Urban League, I'm sorry I didn't write down your name.
Tyrone Walker.
Walker, okay, Mr. Walker. Okay, so trained skilled workers, and we're talking about, as examples, people who may have been in the same, what we might consider to be an entry-level type job, for example, fast food or retail, but they've been there for years, gaining skills and experience. So my question is, why are they still working for the low wages? They've now gained skills and experience. Why don't they seek a raise or seek employment with a competitor that might pay them more?
So I Representative Amity, with all due respect, I reject the premise of the question. I was referring to Representative Cruz's baseline. He was having a philosophical conversation, and I was going down that path. I did not assert that as a starting point that the vast majority of folks who are in minimum wage jobs were all because they were in the same industry or in the same company for a long time and not growing their skills and looking to advance. I did not suggest that.
Okay. In this same committee before, and this is no fault, you're not at fault here. In this same committee before, when we hear bills concerning minimum wage, lo and behold, people do come to this very table in this very room and tell us stories such as, y'all need to give us $15 an hour because I've worked at Popeyes for years and I still can't afford to take my baby girl to Disney World. To which we would want to say, well, you've been at Popeyes for years and you're still being paid minimum wage. Why have you not moved into management or gone to some other business with your same skills who will pay more? So that's the purpose of my question.
With all due respect, I don't want to respond to a hypothetical or an example that was not presented in this body because I don't know the context of that.
Okay,
but what
fair
I can
enough. So
what I can say to you in response to that example, there are hardworking Louisianians that are in all types of skills and industries that are not making a wage that will allow them to provide adequate housing, basic access to fresh foods, and all sorts of quality of life. We are in a moment of inflation in this country. Everything that we're seeing is higher for Louisiana families and workers, right? And so I don't accept the premise that everyone or even the vast majority of folks in our state who are only making the minimum wage at $7.25 are in low-skilled jobs that are just in fast food industries.
I'll use that as an example. But we are, even in this very room right now, hard-pressed to specifically name businesses that have employees who are only paying them minimum wage because, as we've heard, Sam's, Costco, Starbucks, Raising Cane's, all of these are paying much better than minimum wage right now. So I'm seeing this as the free market adjusting itself as it's designed to do. And in the instances that you're speaking of where there are plenty of people, hardworking people, some of them have 2 and 3 jobs, who are not able to keep up. I mean, inflation is crazy. Let's not even talk about my homeowner insurance right now. I don't see that a bill to raise the state's minimum wage solves those problems, especially not solving it as the free market can, as being sure, like you're with the Urban League, I'm sure the organization has programs. I'm looking at it on the screen right now, programs for education and youth development. And I mean, you're promoting people getting more job skills, making them able to get better than minimum wage paying jobs. This is how it's supposed to work. I don't see that this bill raising the minimum wage solves the problem because the businesses that are still doing good business are doing that for themselves because no employees are responding to their ads for $7.25 an hour.
I would only yield. I would yield to the distinguished representative to add to this, but I'll just say this one point to you on this issue. because this larger issue about government regulation or the lack thereof constantly comes up in these conversations. And, I'm a free market capitalist as well, right? But it is inaccurate that government does not regulate industries and things that actually benefit the whole. We have regulations on all sorts of things in our communities because representatives, leaders say it's needed in order to benefit the whole. And so we believe, at least the Urban League of Louisiana believes, in addition to the work that we do every day, to invest in workers, invest in their capacity, and as you alluded to, put them on a pathway to building sustained careers in emerging industries. We believe that there has to be strong communities have strong baselines, and it reflects our values. I think that the people of Louisiana, the hard workers of Louisiana, in every single community of our state, in every single corner, are worth more than $7.25.
Well, they are, and that's why I'm saying they shouldn't be working for $7.25. They should find other jobs, and those businesses that can't find anybody to hire because they're only willing to pay $7.25 are either going to close down or raise the wages. That's what's happening. That's what happened with Starbucks and Raising Cane's and so on and so on. So anyway, let me move on for the sake of time before Madam Chair takes away my light. I wanted to mention that while we've been discussing this, we've looked up statistics and we found that the average Head Start worker in Louisiana makes $27,230 a year. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I also wanted to mention the gentleman from is it the East Baton Rouge Council, sir?
East Baton Rouge Metro Council.
Metro Council? Okay. I also didn't write down your name.
Daryl Hurst.
Hurst. Thank you. I'm sorry. I can't always write as fast as people can say their names. When I had served previously on the Terrebonne Parish Council, and we have a consolidated government there, so it's a city-parish government, we regularly set the wages for employees, not as individuals necessarily. We set the wage parameters for specific job titles. And so that's why I just wanted to mention that we didn't have any specific requirement to keep a wage down or to raise it up outside of the federal minimum wage, of course. And all the jobs I can remember that we set wages for were above minimum wage because we couldn't get any employees if we kept it at minimum wage. So to mention that. And so now to Rep. Larverdane, we've heard testimony here about one of our colleagues whose children went to other states to find better wages. And the states that we were talking about, Texas and Mississippi, have the same wage that we do, the same minimum wage. So obviously they weren't going out of state to find very low-paying jobs in the minimum wage range. So we know that many people in our state are leaving to Texas, specifically, and some to Mississippi, but their minimum wages are the same. So how do you explain that?
Well, I also mentioned Arkansas has $11 per hour in Florida. When you look at what's going on in Mississippi, I don't know why they left. That's not my concern. But I know one thing in Louisiana, we've lost population. Mm-hmm. And if you want to keep people here, you've got to pay better wages and you've got to address the minimum wage. People are not going to stay here in poverty.
Right.
Just
and
like
I agree, we have
just
to
like
pay
we've
better
been talking
wages.
about opportunities. When opportunities come, they're supposed to go. We have to do something about the 725. I don't care if it's in Mississippi, Alabama. We have to address that issue. If we want people to stay here, we've got to pay them a decent salary. Now, I don't know the circumstances with Rep. Freeman's son, daughter. I don't know that. But I know one thing is that 725 is unacceptable. We have to look at these numbers. And I'm asking you all to support this bill because there are a lot of people who are making 725, 775. They're still struggling. We want to keep people here, and to keep people here, you've got to pay decent wages, and you've got to treat them right on those jobs.
Right, and what we've discussed is that $7.25, $7.75, $8, I mean, none of that is really enough. None of that is enough if you have responsibilities like feeding your children and paying your rent. It really isn't, because the jobs that I'm familiar with that pay those wages were designed to be what we know of as entry-level jobs. Those were designed really to be the jobs that teenagers who are still in high school or college, who are still under mom and dad's roof, so they don't have rent. Those are the jobs that they take. And I know that, as we've spoken just moments ago, Mr. Walker pointed out, we have a lot of people in Louisiana who are not entry-level people. They're not 19 years old and still at home, who are having low-wage jobs. My issue is raising the minimum wage does not necessarily mean those people are going to get paid more. Some of them will, the few that remain employed in those positions. The rest will be replaced, as we're already seeing, with other options. The McDonald's right across the street from my house has had a kiosk where you could walk in and order your food and pay for it without even talking to a human being. And so they have reduced the number of employees that they need in order to keep their business open. That means that the few employees who are still there are now making, I don't remember if they start at $10 or $12 or $15 an hour, but there are fewer of them. So those who are now gone may not be making anything. So I just wanted to explain that to let you know that I understand what we're trying to do. We're trying to improve the lot of our residents in our state, especially those who have lower incomes. But I believe that the free market is taking care of this by offering jobs with higher wages. And so the real problem we have is that we have a lot of people in the state who are not qualified for higher skilled jobs, better paying jobs. And I agree with one of our colleagues who spoke a minute ago, and I'll just promote right here, the community and technical colleges, they've got programs out there. They say things like 65K is 9 months away. I mean, I almost applied to go be a lineman. I'm not afraid of heights.
Line. I don't want you on line.
I'm kind of afraid of electricity, so I have not applied.
No.
But it's very tempting because they do a good job. So I'll relinquish the mic. But thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Representative Amity.
I know.
Next in line is Representative Cormier now. I'm trying to keep up with the order here. All right.
Thank you. One thing I'd like to mention, and I think McDonald's does a great job, giving opportunities for people to move up. The top 7 people in McDonald's Corporation started by slinging them up, and so not all the companies do that. But specifically, when we're dealing with small businesses, I'm always very cautious to put a burden on them or shock. A very good friend of mine owns a Shane's Rib Shack, and we had this specific discussion. He said he could handle $9 over the next 2 years. This bill is gradual. That's absolutely necessary, and I appreciate it, and I'm going to vote for it. I would feel more comfortable if it were 9, 11, 13, just because, and as he described it, the shock as far as the prices he'd have to raise for his customers to gradually do that, it could cause him a problem. And there are a lot of small businesses. The first thing, if somebody came in today and said, raise it to 15, the next day the small business owner, a lot of them just say, okay, I have 10 workers, I'm going to have 7 tomorrow. So that's the thing. It's a delicate balance we have to kind of tiptoe down. I do agree that we have to raise it. We have to raise it slow. Again, I'd be more comfortable with 9, 11, 13, and so on. But this is a step in the right direction, so I appreciate it, Rep. Larvadain. And at the proper time, I'd like to move favorably.
And so thank you, Representative Cormier. Representative Phelps, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Rep. Larvadain, for attempting to bring this bill again. Sometimes you have to laugh to keep from crying. That's why I made that chuckle
Representative
there.
Phelps, you're going to have to talk a little closer to the mic.
To the audience that's listening, or that's here, to our young people, again, I just want to say, just please pay attention. Share with the rest of Louisiana the topic, that everything that goes on in this bill. And I think this is definitely a topic where our young people, which will be getting financial literacy in high school starting next year, why this is really beneficial to you to be here today and sharing this with your fellow colleagues and peers. I think it's already been said. Thank all of you gentlemen for raising the issue, livable wages. I don't know if that really makes a difference, but I know it does with me understanding we're just only asking that they even have some type of cost of living wage adjustment just to be able to live and not just have a job. And I just want to share with the gentleman at the table, Madam Chairman, that listening to the debate here just kind of took me back to when wages, when people worked for free.
Ooh, damn it.
My forefathers and I just was thinking of what they went through, just an opportunity for us to even be in this building. And to hear that dialogue just reminded me of that. And again, I guess that's why I'm saying to the people that are here and the young people that are listening and on the audio, sometimes I wonder if Louisiana wants to be better, if Louisiana wants to grow. Even before my tenure here in 2020, I've always, it's been resonated with me now. Why have we not moved forward? And I apologize, I can't give you that answer even in the short time that I've been here. So just a little bit taken back. I'm gonna just kind of reserve my comments there, but just let it resonate if we were in a day where there were no wages. Thank you, Rep. Laverdane, for bringing
Thank
this
you.
bill.
Can Rep.
Hurst.
Mr. Hertz make a comment there real quick? Thank you.
Sure.
So
Let me pull him on.
I got to get used to these mics too.
Yeah, I know it takes
What
a while.
Representative Phelps just said was so powerful, and it goes back to a comment that I wanted to make to Representative Amadei. How can you sit on the Labor Committee and publicly say that I agree that nobody should make $7.25, but not pass a law that prevents it? So you're either part of the solution or part of the problem. And it goes back to Representative Phelps. So it's like somebody who says, I disagree with slavery, but I don't think it's up to me to tell somebody how they should run their plantation. And so I appreciate you bringing it to the forefront today, because what I'm trying to do is end modern-day slavery by supporting this bill and moving minimum wage to a livable wage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, boy.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you, sir. Representative Phelps, you finished, and so now it's Representative Cox's turn.
Well, let me. One of the key things that we have to do, I think, is have a livable wage. A livable wage gives somebody hope. My mother would pick cotton in the morning. She could always pick more than I could all day. She picked cotton in the morning and worked from 12 to 12 at night as in a restaurant. And we still didn't have a livable wage, but we were living. But then I came along and I got a job working for $5 a day. And it was just what it was. Then I learned all these extra skills. I could drive the tractor. I could do everything the guy did out there. But I still got $5 a day. Then I was going to college and I was getting $3.25 a day. And it wasn't at that time bothering me. But then I went in the military and I was making $900 a month after taxes. But when I think it was Reagan, when Reagan came along, we got a raise and we got a livable wage. They doubled our wages because they knew we were fighting for this country, but our families, we couldn't hardly take care of them. Then I heard someone said, my dear friend here, Cruz said, TOPS Tech. I've been trying to pass a bill here for 12 years to give our young folks an opportunity to be able to learn a skill and go out and make this money. 12 years now. It finally made it out of committee. That may be the death of it. But the point is if I want to give these kids, families hope, I got to give them some wages they can live by. I got to give them an education. My mother, bless her soul, she's still here. she might hear this. She'll brief me about it when I get home. But she said, we didn't have health care, and she refused not to work. So she went to the welfare office, that's what we call it, I don't know what it was, and she got welfare. But all she got was health care because she refused to quit work. We got a check for $1.87, but she refused to quit work. And so she bred that in us that we must work no matter what. But if we won't pass stuff like TOPS Tech, which will give kids an opportunity to get an education, to develop that hope, it will work for the kids. There's a program set up for the, I think there was like $12 million set aside for folks to come in and get, but right now they don't have about maybe $2 million committed. The problem is that if you don't give me a livable wage, man, we lived off of what other people were throwing away. But now it's a delicacy. I'm serious. I told him you shouldn't have brought him out to the house and let him eat, because that's what's going to happen now. Pig beefs and chitlins, all these things are considered delicacy. Top Tech is one way to help. But in the meantime, they got to have something to live off of, man. And until you've been P.O. poor, I wasn't poor, I was po, P.O. And many days we ate, but we ate what nobody else wanted. They gave it away. Hope, without hope, you'll have what's happening in Baltimore now. People are just mad, and young folks get a gun and they don't have any hope. I talked to some young kids. They say, if I don't make 20 on the ACT test, it's over with for me. I can't get a job. Well, I told them, I said, man, you can get a technical skill. Yeah, but I'll have to pay for it. I ain't got no money. My brother Cruz here, because we brothers know where you go down the line. We all hooked up. Me probably more than others, but having said that, I mean, he brought out the point about TOPS Tech and the money that you can make. Then I heard Sister Armady, Rep. Armady, she says same thing. You know, they can get an education, they can get these skills. But if you won't vote for TOPS Tech, you won't vote for a pay raise, you're telling me that you don't want to help me. That's what I'm hearing. And of course, I went into the military and I spent 25 and a half years. But I got out, never thought I'd be doing this. Now I work as a state representative. Let's talk about that. We make $17,000, $19,000 a year. That's the day? 16.8. See, he's going to give me now 16.8. I didn't even know what I make because I don't want to get upset. I just send it to the bank account. I don't know what I make because it's unbelievable. But just recently, members of our own colleagues said, we need $60,000. Which I said, well, I won't get any of that. It won't happen. But now they're down to 40,000. If we feel that the people who are making these laws should get $40,000, then why can't we give poor folks $10 an hour? I mean, it's just, when you don't give people hope, I'm telling you, I've been all over the world. I've seen people grow up on garbage piles. They had no hope. Their kids was carrying AK-47s, and they was 12 years old, and they were fighting. I don't want to see stuff like that happen in America as a whole. I don't want to see that happen in Louisiana. We have one of the most, I came home to Louisiana. It's a great place to live. And there is hope here. And hopefully you'll vote for Top Tech when it come around your way to the floor, because it's coming. can you just, you seen me struggle with the top toe bib.
I have.
And I mean, and I get clobbered, but I get up. And I come back again and again. Not because I'm crazy, because I know that Louisiana is a place that we need hope. And I'll just leave it as that.
Let me say
Without
something.
hope, without hope, you got drugs, you got guns, you got violence. Because the kids tell me they don't expect to live past 25.
And that's trouble.
And I'm like, man. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Let me respond real quick. I like your passion, and you and I agree on so much, Rep. Cobb, when it comes to top text, when it comes to educating folks. But there's a segment of people going to school is a challenge because you have child care issues, you have transportation, and money is an issue. When you're talking about, I need to go to class, but I've got this job. Do I pay rent? Do I go to my class? How do I deal with child care? We have not talked about child care. Child care is the big monster. When you have a child who's sick, I have to be able to leave my job to go get that child. I've got to have that car. And the way they're closing schools right now all over the state, your child is in a neighborhood 20 minutes around, and you've got to go have a car to leave your job. So it's just not that simple. So these are a lot of folks who work, they struggle, their parents, their mothers are single parents, they're trying to survive. And so I see where you're going, but thank you for those comments.
Yes, you.
Okay, I'm hot. Okay. So I had a conversation with ExxonMobil last week because, y'all, I breathe and I live, eat, and sleep and breathe workforce development and education. I think the 2 E's change lives. Education and employment. Had a job fair on Saturday where we got 200 people the opportunity to change their lives. Okay, so when I'm sitting here today, it's because it's my passion. All right, but when I talked to ExxonMobil, guess what they said? Go get a technical trade. But I said, man, either one or two things will happen. You don't want to hire the people that you consider undesirable, or you really don't understand what's happening in underserved communities. You're very disconnected. And so I said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, number one, let's look at the zip codes that you're hiring these people from. And so I'm waiting on the data to come back now, but it was the zip codes directly surrounding the chemical plants. I said, I guarantee you those numbers are low. Now, I can't say it on the mic that I have the official data because I don't. I'm waiting for it to come back, number one. Number two is, say, how do you expect these people, it's a partnership with BRCC Technical College, right, to go get educated when they still got bills to pay? And so whatever, I have the choice to go be able to pay my bills, pay for daycare, pay for gas, transportation, repairs to my car that are going to happen, just wear and tear, or I can get rid of all of this, go be homeless while I go to school, get an education, and then hopefully throughout that process I don't break and go back and do something else that's going to put me in a bad situation. There's no way to do both. So what I've asked ExxonMobil is to pay the people $15 an hour while you employ them to become while you educate them to become one of your employees through that partnership with BRCC and take away that barrier to entry. You probably come from a great neighborhood, or if you didn't come from a great neighborhood, you were around people who came from great neighborhoods, two-parent households. But when you are from the PO, you don't understand some of the challenges that we face because you don't intentionally have an elitist attitude. It's just that you have a disconnect between the served community and underserved community. And sometimes I tell people in Baton Rouge, the only time people that don't understand our communities come to it is when they go to Krispy Kreme, Tony's Seafood, and the airport. So other than those three things, you don't know what North Baton Rouge has and the challenges that are faced there. So what I implore each one of you to do is to go into those communities and work with those folks. They're not selling drugs because they want to. They're selling drugs because their grandfather sold drugs. Their dad sold drugs. They sold drugs because they were a hopeless population that saw no way to break the cycle of poverty other than to do those things. Because one of the things that we talk about, not just in state government, but in federal government and local government as well, is we create 2,475 programs and then never educate the people in the community about those programs. So it's great we have them, but how does somebody who doesn't have a cell phone, can't pay for cable, doesn't know how to use the internet, doesn't have the soft skills, doesn't have a GED, a high set, or a high school diploma, how can we tell them to access those tools when they don't have a resource to be educated on what the tools are that are out there in the marketplace? Y'all aren't sending mailers to the door, because I know when I campaigned to 40,000 people, it cost $6,000 to send it to the 38,000 people in my district. So are you putting a budget in place to send out information from your committee of what's available to those people in the state of Louisiana? The answer is no, because it ain't coming to my mailbox. So what I'm telling you is you have to kind of get off your high horses. Stop just going to Tony's Krispy Kreme in the airport and start walking in those communities. Thank you.
Well, let me say this. There is a program, so you will know about it. It's been there since TOPS first came out. I think it came out in 91 or whatever. But TOPS, everybody knows about TOPS. You got to make 20 and you make it in school. But there's a TOPS Tech program. You make 17 and you can go to this school free. I want them to reduce it to 15. So you give a chance. When I grew up, man, there was always a shade tree mechanic, somebody. The kids don't know how to do anything. They only know how to do what they see on TV and what they see in them games they get. This is, and I have also made this, and I'll make this statement clear again, that some of these companies who produce these games that create violence. I was watching a game with my grandkid, and he's supposed to run over this woman coming across the street. She got points for that. I got up and pulled the game out and broke it. But the point is that they should be responsible for some of this, the violence that is occurring. But the hopelessness that you see this program of TOPS Tech, TOPS, they train the kids to take the test.
Cox,
Yes, ma'am.
we got to remind you to be generic to the bill.
Well, this is about training.
Okay.
Well, but let me finish this. That bill, it will make the difference. You gotta, but nobody tells them about TOPS Tech. They tell them about everything else, and they don't train them. But we need to be pushing them to train the folks for the test. It's got a work keys test. Anyway, I'll stop, ma'am, but you'll hear this work keys. Work keys is a way to get us started, and you can work that with that company.
All right.
you're talking about.
Thank you. Representative Cruz, you asked to take another bite at the apple? Okay, shortly.
Hey, just one thing, if y'all don't mind me just reading. I heard someone say they're capitalists there. Let me just read you a paragraph